Вот давайте сейчас послушаем еще, до этого в основном выступали представители государств Таможенного Союза. Теперь давайте послушаем в качестве внешнего наблюдателя королевского советника, члена Палаты лордов Великобритании, сэра Дэниела Бреннана. Пожалуйста.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, thank you very much for inviting me to speak. It would be inappropriate for me as a lawyer and politician from outside the customs union to make any comment about how it's operating. It would also be most unwise because having had 30 years' experience of the common agricultural policy inside the European Union, my only advice to you would be as to the things you should not do as against the things you should do. So I'm going to put the discussion that we're having into the context of what I call global challenges, which you as a customs union, you as 3 different countries, have to consider domestically and regionally through this union. But there's an old saying in Ireland, where my family come from: before I speak to you, I want to say something. And what I want to say is that food was, is, and will be here to stay. Agri-industry is a major fact of future political, business, and social life. So these discussions for us here in Kazakhstan, for the world generally, are of extreme importance. So what are these challenges? Many of which are positive, some negative. World population. Since we started this seminar this morning at about 10 o'clock, approximately 20,000 people have been born into the world. That's 350,000 a day. That means that between this conference opening yesterday and closing today, more than the population of Astana will have entered the world. So, this fact of life means that food is of critical importance. Not only for survival of these newly born, but also because of the desire of emerging markets to better their food production, their food use, and the market that it has for their people. So my first challenge: these people need to eat. The second challenge: people outside of agribusiness, agri-industry often do not understand the economic value of agribusiness in our society. I'm giving you 3 examples. In Brazil, over the last 10 years, Brazil is probably the most exciting country in terms of agricultural development. In last week's Economist, a think tank from Brazil came to the conclusion that in the last decade of that country's development, in terms of actual productive growth of the country, most of it has come from agriculture. Malaysia. Palm oil is a product of Southeast Asia. A state-owned company called Felda is about to be put on the market in Singapore in an IPO worth $3 billion. A company called Bumi Tama was put onto the market in April, and the price went right up straight away. What does that tell you? It tells you that in market terms, business, investors, entrepreneurs are beginning to accept that agribusiness is a serious place for investment and development. My own country, I was astonished to find this out. Last year, in 2011, in the United Kingdom, farming was one of the leading profitable sectors in our economy. And after mining and energy, it was the most productive. And that's in a modern, advanced society. So from Brazil in the developing world, from the entrepreneurial business world of Asia, and from old Europe, the message is agribusiness is central to any economy. Innovation and research is the next challenge, and you are all experts, know this very well. Soil, fertilizers, tillage, irrigation, harvesting, storage, distribution. But also research beyond food as we ordinarily understand it. Non-edible products, fuels, ethanol, vegetable oils, and cutting-edge technology. The use of GPS from the satellites in the sky to guide efficient crop spraying. Computerized irrigation systems to get maximum use out of water and land. On farms themselves, solar panels to provide the local energy needs of that farm or a group of farms. So the next challenge, and my third, is that this agri-industry is now a high-tech industry. The importance of grain. This chart was in the Financial Times a couple of weeks ago. If you look at it, you will see that China and India constitute about 40% of grain production in the world. The Americas, South, North, and Canada, probably 25–30%. And the customs union, of which you three countries are participants, approximately 20 or 25% when you add Belarus to that particular section. So your customs union represents 20–25% of the production of the top 10 countries in the world. That makes you a big, big player. What does it mean? What it means, as I said in simple words, grain counts. Consolidation in the grain sector is the next challenge. In the English phrase, bottom up. Cooperatives are the only way. Small single farmers simply cannot survive. So cooperatives have to be viable, they have to be efficient. They have to use economically systems and equipment. They have to benefit together from the economies of scale, and they have to have access to markets. A Brazilian example, a fund in Geneva, run by Brazilians, operates a system with cooperatives in Brazil where the fund and the cooperatives plan a year's production of different products which are directly sold into the market by the fund in Switzerland without financial intermediaries. And it works so well, other people are now copying it. Consolidation in the grain sector from top down. This is important. Cargill bought Continental in 1998, just over 10 years ago. Glencore, a few months ago, bought a Canadian grain company, Viterra, for $6 billion. In addition to that, Marubeni, a Japanese grain company, are negotiating the purchase of Gavilon, an American crop company, for $5.2 billion. Russia is talking about the partial privatization of its United Grain Company. Now forget about Facebook. Just add up the numbers I've given you this morning. 3-4 billion from Malaysia, 11 billion from these two crop companies, and whatever the Russian company gets. You're talking about $15 to $20 billion invested in this sector in the last 12 months. That's serious money. That's serious consolidation. It should make for domestic efficiency and bigger scale financing. Lastly, commodity markets. Price inflation is a challenge. We now have 3 or 4 commodity markets in the agribusiness world competing with each other for business. That is likely to produce price inflation. The Canadians have relaxed their grain pricing regulatory system, turning it to an open market alternative. This price inflation is a serious challenge to this customs union in selling its goods for export. Price volatility. You all know this very well. What happens with a bad harvest? At the moment, the US Department of Agriculture is predicting that the Ukraine will drop by 30-40% because of this spring's weather and last winter's frost. On the 1st of April in the Financial Times, there is an article predicting that soybean will give way to corn in this year's crops, especially in the US and South America. 8 weeks later is a complete change. The soybean price has rocketed by 30%, and the farmers who were thinking about corn 2 months ago are now thinking about soybean. Now that is price volatility of a really major world economy. And it's a challenge that's going to have to be met. So, who is running these commodity markets? This is a very important point for this customs union. ADM, Bunga, Cargill, Dreyfus, and now Glencore, 5 big entities are in effective control of the world commodity markets in agriculture. That's an amazingly small number of people. Time perhaps for governments, if needs be, for sovereign wealth funds to start putting money into the commodity market for agribusiness. So what does this produce? It produces a market price system which is unpredictable and in a small group of hands. So I've set you out from a global perspective a number of challenges which to one extent or another impact on your customs union. But these challenges, I think, provide an opportunity. Yesterday we heard from the president of Kazakhstan, President Nazarbayev, about his vision for the 21st century. I thought it was a really impressive vision. And it included action, not just talk, action. Now, I've run you through the need for food, its value, innovation that's required, the consolidation that's involved, the importance of the grain market, the control of commodity pricing. What does that mean for the world? It means we have to start doing something about it. And I make a proposal, which I discussed yesterday with the Minister of Agriculture, from all the factors that I've described, that here in Kazakhstan, maybe next year if it's possible, you hold, in keeping with the Astana Economic Forum, a visionary concept, a similar kind of vision with a conference which I'll call, as at the bottom, a Global Economic and Food Security Summit. Not forum, summit. At the top, discussing out of filtered out ideas and actions. Kazakhstan is a rich country in products, resources, people, wealth, but also ideas. And it's an excellent place to influence this public debate for the future. You've been most patient, Mr. Chairman. I suspect I've gone over my 10 minutes, which means that several 100,000 more people have probably been born since I started talking, which simply illustrates to you the importance of everything you're discussing today. Thank you very much.